CNBC TV 18 presents the Industry Knowledge Exchange Conclave in partnership with SAP. This is an exclusive 6-forum series where visionaries, business leaders, industry experts have come together to brainstorm about different tech-powered, customer-centric solutions to create a robust roadmap to the future across industries and across sectors. While the focus is to understand the overall role of technology and innovation in creating a resilient and future-ready enterprise, we will be having specific industry-focused discussions. And today, the focus is on the consumer packaged goods and retail industry. So I would like to welcome you all to the Industry Knowledge Exchange Conclave in partnership with SAP. In the midst of every crisis lies a great opportunity. These were the famous words of Albert Einstein. And the veracity of this quote has been endorsed by the way CPG sector has coped up with the current disruptions. The consumer landscape is evolving right before our eyes. New trends are reshaping the consumer experience. And despite these patterns and fractured supply chain, the sector has bounced back with great resilience. Going forward, digital transformation is pivotal to unlock true potential and move towards a more resilient future. And to understand the key trends and predictions and decode how to use tech to predict consumer trends, I would like to invite Mr. Gunjan Shah, CEO Bata India Limited, to share with us the keynote address.
It's my pleasure to be here and to address this audience, right, on this topic. The way I see this, I think the journey on digital transformation was something that was ongoing and in fact accelerating even before the pandemic hit us, and it has only accelerated even more so since then. Right, new people and newer millions of consumers have entered into this entire stream. Right, connectivity, the demand for connectivity, etc., has dramatically gone up. Obviously, I think the cost of connectivity has dramatically crashed, right? And similarly, other resources that are involved in the digital supply chain. So I think all of this points towards the fact that basically digital is here to stay and is going to be even, more and more, a part and parcel of our lives. And I think people have seen that basically this entire transformation is not only being done from a online world, which is digital commerce, whether it is D2C or whether it is the e-commerce engines, etc., right, but also in the offline world now, as the physical world opens up, and therefore the phygital consumer, right, is actually expecting, in my view, a very seamless experience, right? Is wanting to see something maybe online and then trying to see how that can be felt offline, or the other way around, which is that something in the offline world triggers her thoughts and simultaneously wants to check for, let's say, product reviews or more details, etc., which are not easily available in the digital world. So I think the seamless experience is going to be very, very critical going forward, as hopefully we near normalcy, people do move around, and we will see that both these channels will actually evolve to finding a way to coexist. But in Bata, what we have done is basically we have managed to show QR codes of the entire range of styles of ours, and therefore the consumer can, while the curiosity is picked by what she sees on the shelves, but simultaneously person can at the same time basically access thousands of more styles just by clicking on a QR code and going online, and also backed up by an entire supply chain which basically makes sure that you don't even have to move your foot. You can just simply park your order there and it gets delivered home. While doing this entire piece, I think the utilization of new age technologies in terms of machine learning, in terms of artificial intelligence, is dramatically going up. And I think similar kind of stuff will also now start showing up even in the offline world. So whether it be in terms of just giving prompts on this kind of a consumer, this is, let's say, for example, you go to a shop and you buy something, you go to the point of sale terminal and you're buying it, you're just simply doing a transaction and it pops up out there saying that it's your birthday, right? A simple gesture like that can also be dramatic. But how does this work? How does someone know that out of the millions of consumers who have bought at the Bata stores knows that it's your birthday today, right? And it has to be instantly available at the POS terminal where you're buying it. I think these, and this digital transformation is here to stay. Uh, while I've talked a lot about basically from a consumer experience point of view, and that is for sure driving this entire digital transformation, whether it be in terms of the way the consumer sees transaction and therefore business and business models, whether it is offline world or the online world, it is also in the way the consumer sees it from a media propagation point of view. So your brand engagement, etc., has gone through multiple mediums, and it's no longer only one. Let's say you run your ads in your newspapers or you run it only on your television commercials, right? Now it's going to coexist, and you will actually have to figure out a way of them also sponging off each other. But digital transformation, mind you, is not only consumer experience. There are many other facets to this. I think, and this is only gaining traction, right? Let's say, for example, in large, wide organizations like ours, right? Digital is the way forward if you want to drive productivity as well as enhancement through algorithms. It is a very simple way of trying to make sure that there is enterprise connectivity as well as governance controls as we try and basically widen ourselves while trying to get as close to consumers. Simultaneously, I think what is another area which is going to pick up real high, a lot of momentum from the digital space is going to be analytics as well as inciting, I would say, right? I think the days of only MIS dashboards is long gone. There is a lot of work that you can do in terms of analytics, mapping multiple databases, finding out insights rather than just churning out data, right? So there's a long way that is there. I think the journey is well and true begun, and I'm sure that we will see a lot more excitement, a lot more innovation. With that, I would like to end this. Thank you so much, and look forward to interacting with you all online or offline. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gunjan, for the opening address. And moving on to our next discussion, the CPG industry has been seeing some major disruptions, with brick and mortar stores giving way to increased online sales. And the sector needs to predict fast changing consumer needs to deliver valuable experiences which are powered by technology. Over the years, CFOs in this sector have taken on major roles, and they're no longer just the economic guardians. They can also create breakthrough opportunities for themselves and the organizations by leveraging technology. They need to embed finance in functional decision making to harness the power of data. Coming up next is a discussion with industry experts on the evolving role of New Age CFOs as catalysts of digital transformation. Hello and welcome to this very special discussion, the New Age CFOs, drivers of digital transformation. And our focus is the changing role of CFOs in the post-pandemic digitization era. CPG companies have encountered various structural shifts from both the demand and supply side. And now, over the coming decade, upheavals in global consumer supply markets are likely to produce as many losers and winners among the CPG companies. The game changer is technology driven solutions for sustained business growth. And that's what we are going to be discussing today. And I'm joined by an esteemed panel, Mr. Sarnarayan Rajgopalan, Executive Vice President of Finance and CFO, TTK Prestige Limited, Ms. Jayashree Sadgopan, Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer at Coromandel, Mr. Snehal Shah, Chief Financial Officer at Century Textiles and Industries Limited, Mr. Manoj Ahuja, Group Chief Financial Officer, ABIS Exports India Private Limited, IB Group, and Mr. Rohit Bagade, Chief Financial Officer, India Subcontinent at SAP. And our focus today will be to discuss the business challenges faced by CFOs in the current environment and how the New Age CFO is exploiting the latest technologies to drive digital transformation. I'd like to begin by asking you, Ms. Jayashree, what are the challenges that you face in the current business environment, and how does the current business environment make operations very complex? How can technology help in this scenario?
Well, as we all have experienced with COVID, the digital adoption has actually increased and it is accelerated over the past few months. In our organization, too, we are in this journey of digital transformation. I would say it is not about just adopting digital and transformation happening in the digital space, but I'm seeing this more as a business process transformation too. So when we talk about adopting digital tools and technologies, we find that certain processes in the company also need to change. And this is being driven right from the top. All the business leaders, the functional leaders have this part of their key agenda. This is part of our goals and objectives. So there is a core team that is being formed, which drives this digital data adoption and transformation across the organization. We are now looking into adopting these tools right from the shop floor to the marketplace. So any data that is there in the company can be seamlessly viewed and insights drawn for the leadership team, for the sales team, for the production team, for them to decide very, very meaningfully. So this is a whole new process where there is a lot of change management that's happening, questioning the status quo, looking into the prerequisites, getting on to the automation, adopting the new technologies, training the teams, skilling them, also helping them to understand through visualization charts that it is going to be very easy to have the data at their fingertips, which could actually help in uh, precise decision making. So that's the transformation journey we are into now.
I'd like to come to you, Mr. Snehal. What are the challenges that you had faced at your environment, and how did you make your operations digital? How did technology help you to transform?
So we have couple of old age businesses like textiles and pulp and paper business, and we have now a new age business in the real estate sector. So I think one good thing about us was that we had sort of a very low level of basic technology also in the company, and what we have done is now we are kind of scaling it up, at least in terms of the core systems like the ERPs and the other systems which we are kind of building up. For example, we've started moving on to the latest HANA 4 ERP systems, etc. And there are a lot of opportunities for us, particularly in the real estate sector, to move on to almost leapfrog into digital sphere. And that's where we have some few strategies that we've kind of worked out, and these are not really kind of based on COVID or anything. These were part of our original strategic plan, and probably COVID has just kind of accelerated those things. So that's how we have kind of moved on in terms of adopting all the new technologies that we need in our businesses. Even on the manufacturing side, for example, we are looking at things where we can automate our operations through a digital mode, etc. So we're looking at possibilities over there, and it's a thing that which is right now work in progress, I should say, and that's how we are kind of looking at it.
Mr. Rajgopalan, well, 72% of CPG CFOs have reported that they have the final say in technology, which is a great sign. And CFOs, as we all agreed, are not just value creators, they are digital drivers. So, from your learnings and experience, could you share how have they leveraged technology in the current environment?
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I think, as my other panelists were mentioning, I think one thing that good we learned through this pandemic is we all understood how to manage business remotely and what are the challenges or the difficulties we had by managing this business remotely. In fact, all of us went through it and we successfully came out of it as well. In fact, this made us all to focus on digital transformation, and we all believe that it is possible and it has immense benefits, and we also understood that it is a must and it's just not nice to have. So having stuck at home for major part of the last 18 months, everyone in the organization today believe that, and they understand the importance of digitization. So this is a very welcome change, because digitization cannot happen in an organization unless we have the involvement and the support of everyone in the organization. Today, the business are growing in all directions. So what's happening yesterday may not happen today, because we don't know overnight from the traditional business, everything, all business moved into e-com. And we didn't have any large format stores to work on. So everyone need to be alert what's happening in the world, in the environment, and then we have to be very, very ready to be there. I think that's where the digitization is going to play a major role. That's why we are also aligning ourselves to have a real-time data for the right decision at the right time.
So coming to you, Mr. Rohit, what are the future opportunities and growth priorities for your business?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Look, we are experiencing by far the biggest crisis faced by our generation. Numerous lives and livelihoods have been deeply impacted. The virus has altered the way we communicate, dress, work, and live. From a macroeconomic standpoint, after declining 7.3% last year, Indian economy is expected to grow anywhere between 8 to 9% this year, and then is expected to grow on a sustainable basis at the rate of 6.5 to 7% from FY23 onwards. Of course, this depends on how the virus evolves. As of now, vaccination seems to be very effective against the virus. In the last 25 years of presence in India, SAP has served more than 13,000 organizations, including most of the retailers and CPG players. Today, our customers in India contribute to more than 60% of the India's GDP. From a priority perspective and future opportunity standpoint, I would like to talk about 4 or 5 things that we are looking at. The first one is over the last 18 months, we have seen demand for digital transformation for which we are partnering with our customers and a very robust ecosystem. We are working on executing our company strategy, and for us, that means we find ways to sustain our company's cloud growth. Mid-market and SMEs will continue to be a high focus areas for us. SMEs are truly the backbone of Indian economy. Today, SMEs contribute to roughly 30% of our economy, and over the next 5 to 10 years, SMEs are expected to contribute 50% to the overall India GDP. From an employment generation standpoint as well, SMEs today contribute by having 11 crore people employed in the 63 million MSMEs in India. We are expanding majorly in the SMB space, and our net new acquisition strategy is growing very, very fast. The third one is to look at new growth areas. So we are looking at fintechs, startups, and unicorns. With almost 3 unicorns every month, the entrepreneurial engine seems to be in fast gear. We will continue to focus on this particular area and accelerate. Another important area for us is accelerating growth in public sector. We continue to see good investment in public sector towards digitization initiatives. SAP has been a partner to various state and central projects and initiatives. Our 500 crore investment to localize the availability of solution in India will give us a major boost as to how we partner with the public and citizen services. And the last point, and I would say last but not the least, is the topic on sustainability. The topic on sustainability has found its way towards the boardroom as the threat of climate change becomes very real by the day. We all need to talk about top line, bottom line, and now we need to talk also about green line. As a custodian of core processes, SAP has been enabling enterprises of different sizes with sustainable business practices. So these are some of the areas that we are looking at from a long-term perspective, wherein we definitely see tremendous opportunity with a very clear focus on leading with cloud.
Okay, so Mr. Manoj, what according to you are the future opportunities and growth priorities for your business?
The business is going good and the opportunities are immense. And through digitalization processes and improvement in the process, digitalization through, basically we have got the big opportunities in our hand to take our organizations to next levels. So in our company, we had adopted the digitalization process about a decade back. When we shifted to the ERP systems, we tried to basically digitalize every aspect and every operation of the organization into the systems. And recently, we have been shifted to the S4 HANA to upgrade overall systems so that the benefit of the digitalization can be taken for the organization benefit.
All right. So coming back to you, Ms. Jayashree, let's talk about the evolving role of CFOs. With new business models emerging, businesses undergoing transformation, How is the role of the chief financial officer changing in your point of view?
Today, if you look at the role of CFOs, I would say it's more in terms of partnering in value creation, right? That's where most of the time of the CFOs are going. And when we talk about partnering value creation, it is all about looking into the right opportunities for growth and right opportunities for profitable growth. So, in this aspect, technology definitely is playing a key role. While we are seeing the CFOs not just being internally focused, there is a lot of time that is being spent on looking at the external environment, scanning what's happening globally at a national level, what's happening at the socio-economic, political environment, what's the industry landscape changing, what are the disruptions that are coming in because of new technologies that are coming in. Over the past few years, we have seen that a huge level of disruption has happened due to the technological changes that have happened globally and at the country level. So, getting an external perspective, working closely with the CEOs is becoming a very, very integral part of CFO's role. While all of this is happening in terms of understanding the business, using the business acumen, getting a perspective from a finance standpoint, to looking at how there is opportunities for wealth creation in every aspect, I think CFOs are also expected to be an enabler of change, to be the catalyst driving the change from a technology adoption within the organization. Be it the basic ERP system, some of my co-panelists talked about SAP HANA, right? So even in our company, we have moved into SAP HANA a couple of years back. A lot of changes in terms of using the technology per se, not just the basic ERP system, but also going into cloud-based application, because that is also a newer way where you could look at investments very differently from a capex to an opex model. Looking into IT itself from a very different lens, not as a cost, but as a very, very essential investment for future growth, is a key differentiator. I think these are few areas where the CFOs are playing a key role. Also, getting into visualization tools, dashboarding, and this whole thinking about information is power. I know that finance people sometimes could get very comfortable with holding a lot of information. Through this digital disruptions and technology adoption, finance is actually becoming a self-service function. So you see that information is available, touch of a button for all the users. Therefore, they could quickly get onto the job rather than coming back to finance professionals or the CFOs and asking for basic information. So that's a journey that each of the companies are going through.
So coming back to you, Mr. Rohit, technology no doubt has enabled CFOs to wear various hats. They are no longer just value creators. They are also digital drivers. They are bringing holistic digital transformation across the organization. So how do you think CFOs can leverage that going forward?
Thanks for the question. In fact, a very pertinent one. I would say first, let me talk about finance, right? So, for decades, offshoring, outsourcing, and centralization has kind of driven the finance function's productivity agenda. However, recently we have seen organizations beginning to leverage things like machine learning, RPAs, and AI to reshape finance. The role of the CFO, if you see, is really critical to any organization's strategy, and it impacts basically two areas. The first one is the CFO is responsible for managing finance operation. We call it as a BAU, or business as usual. The second one is to influence and provide future direction to an organization. The later part has significantly evolved in the last few years as CFOs have made the move towards what we call as value creation. Finance function has evolved from being a back-end accounting and cost control function to a growth engine which is focused on two areas: business automation, and second one is providing actionable business insights so that we can take timely business decisions. If you look at business transformation, first let me talk about finance transformation. Finance transformation is at the heart of business transformation. The way we engage with our customers, whether it is through contracting, whether it is through invoicing, AR, etc., the way we engage with our suppliers from an end-to-end procurement standpoint, and the way we engage with our employees, these all touch core finance processes. It is very important for us to ensure that we digitize this so as to have an improvement in customer experience, supplier experience, and employee experience. Talking a bit of what SAP has done in 2019, SAP migrated to S4 HANA. And at that point in time, we created a very clear 4-year automation roadmap. This roadmap gave us access to technologies and innovations, which meant that we can now leverage this particular technology in our day-to-day operations. In spite of COVID, we have kind of traveled down that particular road and we have not stopped. In fact, we have accelerated. We today have got more than 40 innovations in active live production, and we are just leveraging that, and we will accelerate in future. We are also looking at embedding automation and machine learning in the core processes, which will help us get end-to-end visibility on the process, and it will also help us to automate this as much as possible so that people can spend more time on the front-end side of the finance, which is basically to partner with the business to take accurate, accelerated decisions. When you look at our customer, we are seeing CEOs and CFOs getting involved in technology strategy of a company. There is a growing demand that data needs to be integrated with the business. CFOs and CIOs need to work together to ensure that A, there is a very clear digital strategy, and number two, there is a clear return on investment or value for money for the investments that are being made. Investments are good, but it is about value realization, which is even more important. So I would conclude by saying that CFOs, if you look at it, change for CFOs is a constant. But this time, the change is accelerating and the recovery is expected to be digital. CFOs are playing a very important role in terms of driving business transformation and leading this particular change.
CFOs are no longer just custodians of budget. They are value creators when it comes to digital transformation. So coming to you, Mr. Snehal, what in your point of view is the way that CFOs can lead this entire change, which is critical for the CPG sector of driving digital business transformation?
So I have a little bit of a view on this in terms of, it's all fine about, we talk about digitization, automation, etc. But I think one of the biggest mistakes that any organization can make, and where the CFO has to step in, is to ensure that we don't get into what we call it a me too or a we too kind of a situation. That is, somebody else is doing it, so we kind of have to do it also. Secondly, I think Rohit mentioned correctly that, we got to first, harness the existing ERP functionalities that we have nowadays. Like we also have HANA 4 installed in 2 of our divisions, and the third one is in progress. So there are a lot of functionalities available which we can harness, because nowadays you're bombarded with, like we have the WhatsApp university, we have the fintech vendor university, which keep on bombarding you with mails, and most of the things we can actually do within the ERP that we have got. We sometimes in certain analytics, because people still have not harnessed Excel, for example. I mean, it's a basic tool. There are a lot of analysis. You can use Excel as a good tool for analysis. And I think the most important, after everything, you got to look at your operating model. I look at the operating model from 5 perspectives. I think some of you have already mentioned those things. This is, your configuration, whether you are kind of centralized, decentralized, etc., or a hybrid situation. You look at your organization, whether you have certain processes in-house or you outsource. You look at the people, because you may need to hire new people with new skills, or you might need to reskill your existing people. You've got to deep dive into your processes, whether they need to change now to meet the new requirements. And finally, what is your kind of existing technology, environment that you have? And this is a 5-slice pizza, and as they say, every slice needs to be devoured before you're kind of satisfied. So you look at everything, then prepare a good use business case, and once you've done that, I'm sure it is pretty easy for you to take your case and get your approvals, etc., from whoever there may be. I think this is not where things end. I think going forward, you got to ensure that you measure your business benefits that you have promised, and whether we have achieved those, and what are the next steps to kind of harvest the benefits. And most importantly, there has to be a regular refresher training for the users to improve their usage of the solutions that we have already deployed.
That was a very, very pertinent insight. In fact, 72% of CPG CFOs do report that there is scope for improvement and they do have the final say in technology. But as you said, we have to exercise caution going forward. So I'd like to come to you, Mr. Manoj. In your experience, how do you as a CFO lead the change of digital transformation and what are your key insights here?
So I was saying that the old traditional work of the CFOs basically has changed a lot, and due to the digitalization and the process changes, uh, it is a need of the hour that working of the CFOs or working in the organization to digitize the overall processes in a manner which is efficiently taken care, and it is everybody involved in this stakeholder should be involved in the processes to make it the final versions, so that everybody should be feel that they have contributed towards the best support for the overall process, and that gives the benefit to the organization. In our case also, we had a S4 HANA conversion done, and we had made a committee for, involving every stakeholders of the organization, so that they should become the part of the change in the organization, and the change should happen in a good way. So that the way we have converted our old system into the new systems.
So coming to you, Ms. Jayashree, for consumer good companies, it's very critical to foster collaborative relationships by using digital adoption. So according to you, what is the importance of cross-enterprise visibility in creating 360-degree business value across the organization?
I would say for every company, whether it's a consumer-faced organization or not, this collaboration and making information available across various functions, departments is extremely critical, especially so in the current context. So, from my perspective, if we were to look into it, get the data available at the fingertips, real time, online to the different users, so that the silos within the organization can break. Today, what determines the competitiveness and also contributing to the bottom line is the ability of the leadership team to access real time data, get some insights, quick analysis, help in decision making. All of this would happen only when we are able to seamlessly work through within the organization. Therefore, information sharing across the functions becomes critical. For instance, if we were to look into the sales organization, it would be very helpful if the sales and the marketing head would know how the performance of the division is. The performance of a division with respect to sales, with respect to collections, with respect to receivables, with respect to how the respective sales officers are actually going around meeting with the end customers. What's the contribution margins that each of these divisions are able to make? A comparison versus your target or your plan, a comparison versus last year or a last month. All this information can be made available. Look at the power of information if it is there with their sales head or the divisional head. So they can quickly see, okay, this mix is actually going to make more sense for me, or this market is going to be far more richer for me to go and target, or there is a different customer need which I could possibly address. The same thing will hold true for every other function. Linking on the needs of the market, uh, planning through the supply chain, ensuring the production requirements are tuned to meet with the market requirements. The procurement is aligned with the production requirement. All of this, when it happens seamlessly, you can definitely see that the productivity of the business improves a lot. A, you're able to meet with the market requirements, your customer demand. Uh, B, the alignment also helps in terms of improving your not just the top line but also the bottom line. So I think it's extremely critical for companies to look into it at a 360 degrees, work seamlessly across the various functions within the company.
So, coming to you, Mr. Rajgopalan, what is your input here? What is the importance of enterprise, cross enterprise visibility, and how can you create 360-degree business value?
Right. See, today I strongly believe, I think a business cannot be grown or its profitability can be assured just by the CEO or the CFO. It is required to be driven by each and every function and each and every manager in the organization. This can only happen when we have the key MIS to all the functions, and the finance guys work very closely with them, make them understand the key metrics, and make them work towards achieving their objectives. That's very critical. I think with all these ERPs today, which has got all the required information in it, what we need to do is prepare a dashboard report and share it with each and every function to their requirement. So this will ensure that I think people focus on what is required, and then which will definitely help the business. Because those days, if you really look at when you do a forecasting, this is all based on the history. We look at, okay, this quarter is a season full of festivals, so that's where I need to produce more and keep it. But that's not the case today. I think we have every day looks different. So we have to have a real-time data to ensure we have the required information so that the production is ready to produce what the sales want, and the sales is able to sell what the customer want. So that's really makes it very crucial that the digital transformation is very critical, and also having the data real time is becoming very crucial to an organization. That's where I think today all of us are focusing, and we are, I'm sure, I think where we are today in 2 years time, all of us will be much more vigilant, and much more we'll be able to manage anything the way in which we are looking for.
And coming to you, Mr. Snehal, we were just discussing cloud, and investments in cloud can actually bring real-time market data to the corner office. So I'd like to ask you, how do you use these new insights in taking informed business decisions, and how do you cope up in the new normal by leveraging these?
Yeah, Ruchir, I think I agree with Rohit. I think cloud is a big enabler right now, and I think we have taken a strategic decision that anything new that we do in the digital space, we will be hosting everything on cloud. Number one, it gives you scalability, it gives you economies, and it's a host of things. For example, if you're doing some sort of te- some new development, earlier you used to use up your own server space to do the in the for the testing environment, etc. Now you don't need to do that. You just go on use a cloud service provider, do your stuff over there. Once it is over, put it into your production, and you're free of that space. So cloud, I think, is one of the most important enabler right now. With enough sense, other than COVID, I think cloud is the other accelerator for digitalization across all spheres of our lives. And I think without cloud, I think a lot of things that we are doing right now would not have been possible, in my opinion.
So, according to a report that I read recently, 85% of CFOs cited lack of collaboration and integration across functions as the biggest deterrent to strategic change in the organization. But going forward, coming back to you, Ms. Jayashree, how can CFOs help their companies have a more long term view while streamlining costs and managing cross functional teams?
Yeah, I think Ruchira, streamlining cost, looking into some of the cost levers are, I would say, like a very basic function. So we leave that aside for a moment, since the role of the CFOs have also been transforming over a period in time. So looking into the long-term perspective, looking into what opportunities are there, that's where I was mentioning earlier, a good insight on what's happening on the external environment, being strategic, spending time with the industry peers, also visiting and understanding what's happening in the marketplace becomes extremely important. there is some amount of insight that you can get by looking into the business opportunities from within, but understanding the macro picture, looking into uh, the changes that are happening externally, along with the technology changes, are going to be critical when you co-steer the growth and the growth opportunities for the business, purely from a longer term perspective. Because there are shifts that are happening, and those shifts are quite large. If you don't catch it at the right time, you might possibly also miss an opportunity that your company could possibly be leading. Therefore, it is important in my mind that looking beyond the horizon and devoting time for looking into these opportunities apart from doing the core job is very, very essential for CFO, not just a CFO, I would say at the executive leadership level in every company.
Definitely, definitely. And Mr. Rajgopalan, coming to you for this one, what's your view on the CFO, CIO collaboration or holistic collaboration for driving digital growth?
Right. I will say that I think CFO cannot be taken as just a finance executive. You need to be an enterprise-wide executive. You need to play a very key role collaborating with each and every department, including CIO. Of course, the CFO and CIO collaboration is very, very critical for an organization, because in the currently, I think if you really look at the amount of requirement on the compliance has become multiplied. It was not so a few years back. Today, I think everywhere when one scam comes in, I think the requirement of the compliance multiplies. And a CFO cannot manage any of those things without a digital support. Every day, I think you can look at that. Something or other coming up in the papers. This is what is required to be done. So the collab in this matter, the collaboration becomes very, very critical because again, in a large organization, it is the CFO will not be in a position to look at what's happening around him in every nook and corner. So unless each and every the function is alerted on what is required, give them the required system for them to monitor. This alone will help a CFO to focus more on what is required by the regulators.
All right. So just before we wrap up, Rohit, as everybody reiterated that CFOs are wearing multiple hats, technology has made it imperative for CFOs to not just be budget custodians, but also be value creators, also be catalysts of digital transformations. So how do you as a CFO lead this change?
Yes, I think it is important to kind of embrace technology. I think that would be the first point from my side. There are, I think, as my fellow co-panelists said, there are multiple options available today. But whatever option or solution that you choose, it is important to implement that end to end and get the return from that particular investment and the value from that investment. That would be the first one. The second one is, as we look at embracing technology, we need to ensure that we are reskilling, upskilling the workforce as well, because it is all about mindset change, right? That's the second point. The third point I would say is, look, transformation is not a constant. It is ever changing. You will have to continuously transform. I remember in March 2020, we had very different conversation in our boardroom in terms of what we need to do versus the conversation that we are having now in terms of what we need to do. So we have to take this like a cricket match, right? It's a T20 one-day test match, and that's how I look at it from a short-term, medium-term, and long-term perspective. You need to be able to play all the matches in order to ensure that you are staying ahead of the competition and winning market share. So I would say this is something which is very important for us to ensure that we continue this particular journey.
All right. Fine. So just before we wrap up, one final question to you, Mr. Snehal. How are you managing cost while adopting new age technologies?
So first of all, managing costs. First of all, the need for the particular uh, transformation that we want to undertake, or the new tool that we want to implement, or the new development that we want to do on the technology space, the thing has to come from a need. I mean, once that need is decided, so what happens is you've identified, say, some sort of a business problem. So you look at that business problem. Then there might be some sort of some sort of a merger or something that is happening in your
All right.
organization. So those kind of things, once you have the need assessed, then it becomes easier for you to justify the cost.
Address.
And then it's just a question of allocating the resources, deciding whether it's going to be a opex expenditure or a capex expenditure, and what is the time horizon that is required. I think everything justifies, the need has to justify everything. Once you have the need, it becomes very easy, as I said earlier. And I don't think there is a need for me to then justify the cost.
All right.
Once the need is justified, the cost is automatically justified. So I see, and of course, everybody talks about ROI and all. It's extremely difficult and challenging for a person who's kind of not so much aware of technology to understand why we are spending this money. But I think generally nowadays everybody is pretty knowledgeable to understand that ये तो करना ही है and this has to be done. And if you kind of are not able to justify the need, then then you are in trouble.
So, just before we wrap up, one last question to each one of you. I would request you to sum it up in one sentence. What are your, or three sentences actually, what are your top three strategic priorities as a CFO over the next 18 months? We can start with you, Ms. Jayashree.
The first priority for me would be to partner on value creation. There are lots and lots of opportunities out, and how do you look into capital allocation? How do you look into steering the growth opportunities? That's number one. The second one, which is extremely critical, is to get onto this digital transformation journey where you work very closely with the executive leadership to see that information is made available for all so that insightful decision making is possible. The third one, which is extremely critical for me, is to also ensure that finance as a function is able to adopt and lead this digital transformation. I'm not talking just at a CFO level, but I'm talking about everyone in the finance organization also getting on board and saying that this is the way that the company can actually move forward and it would be helpful for realizing the true potential.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Jayashree. Mr. Rajgopalan, what's your insight here?
Three simple priorities I have: improve controls, improve compliance, improve collaboration, all through digitization.
All right. Great. Thank you. So, Mr. Rohit, would you like to add something here? Top three priorities that CFOs should look at?
Sure. So my top three priorities would be number one, drive sustainable and profitable growth. The second one would be to ensure that we drive customer success, wherein our customers are not just buying what we are selling, but are able to adopt and succeed in that adoption. And third one is to focus on internal workforce transformation in an era wherein we'll have to do more with less.
And lastly, Mr. Snehal, what is your insight here?
Well, I mean, of course, CFOs have an ongoing strategy of investor management, etc. But I think other than those key things which are there in every CFO's role, we are looking at three things right now. One is we are building on a complete enterprise risk management framework for ourselves, and we are also looking at ESG, which is coming up in a big way, and we are of course looking at business continuity planning. And in these three areas, technology plays an important role. And I think I'm kind of looking at ensuring that I use technology to the greatest extent in these three initiatives that we are taking. On a slightly base level, I would say that I'm trying to see that I'm able to provide a simple cloud-based, easy to deploy, kind of a friendly GUI-based solutions that can kind of provide a curated dashboard to all the front-end users, versus the old style of centralized data analysis and distribution, which is normally the case of the finance function. And I want to get rid of that altogether.
Thank you for joining us and sharing your deep insights with us. And just to sum up, the role of the CFO has evolved over the years. They're not just chief financial officers, but are also taking on a critical role in forward thinking organizations. And digitally powered frameworks can enable CFOs in empowering teams and making data driven decisions to support growth and agility across the enterprise. Hope you all enjoyed watching this very special show. Hello and welcome to CNBC TV 18 presents the Industry Knowledge Exchange Conclave in partnership with SAP. While a few consumer product companies have already taken the digital leap, more and more organizations are now embracing digitization across the back office, the middle office, and the front office. But as the pace of change intensifies, CIOs need to usher in digital transformation to make businesses ready for what's next. And the connected CIO need to leverage technology as a means of achieving business imperatives. So that brings us to our next discussion, technology imperatives for a future-ready organization in the CPG and retail sector. And for that, I'm joined by an esteemed panel of industry experts. So let me begin by introducing them. Mr. Anant Narayan, Head of Information Technology, Himalaya Wellness Company.
Hi.
Mr. Ekal Pari, CIO, Food Tech, Jubilant Foodworks.
Hello, greetings of the day.
Mr. Deepak Bhosle, GM IT Asian Paints. Thank you, Mr. Deepak, for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you here.
It's indeed my pleasure as well.
Mr. Gulrez Alam, Director and CIO, ABIS Exports, IB Group.
Hello, everybody.
And Ms. Ritu Ranade, Vice President, CPG, Pharma and Life Sciences, SAP.
Hello, everyone, and welcome.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today. And we will be brainstorming on how to leverage technology to meet the dynamic customer needs and discussing also the impact of new age technology. So let's start. Mr. Ekal, I'd like you to share your experience here. How have you dealt with the disruption that happened during the pandemic, and how have you accelerated this digital transformation during this phase?
First of all, JFL was already on its digitization journey. I have always believed in digitization. The COVID catalyzed that and accelerated the entire journey. But what did it force us to do? Well, first of all, it got us to be able to work virtually and collaborate virtually. So providing the infrastructure for people to collaborate, working from home, working hybrid. These are the elements that became hygiene for an organization. Apart from that, whether you speak about customers, whether you speak about the frontline people or about employees or your partners, when I say partners, whether it be vendors or whether it be partners that you do business with or your channels aggregators, you had to find a way to work with them digitally. And those elements of bringing a loosely coupled architecture, having open APIs, connecting with your partners' ecosystem, all of these became extreme imperatives. That was the second piece. And the third and the most important change, I wouldn't say a change, but an acceleration in the change that has happened is more user-centric, more design thinking, and more research has come in. So earlier, when the IT solutions were being evaluated or IT solutions were being thought of, it was mainly from a point of view, okay, this is the space, these are the IT solutions, and this is what we're going to implement, and then we're going to drive change management to get users to adopt. That has changed now. You got to build solutions that are designed with the user at the center.
Mr. Anand, how are you working towards adopting digital technologies across the organization, and how are you embracing digitization?
Like any other business, our industry also, our business also was affected And initially, it was a very big impact because the initial days of the pandemic, as you all know, there was complete disruption. I mean, people didn't know how to handle it, and we had constraints. Cannot travel, cannot go and do our business as usual. The only way to get over this was to accelerate the digital transformation process. Many of the industry has already been taking up this journey. It is not that we were waiting for the pandemic to happen to take up this journey. Many of us were already in a certain stage of the transformation. What the pandemic has done is it has accelerated it. Those choices which were there earlier had to be plugged in, which were not there now, had to be plugged in. So what was the choice? To get on a digital platform.
Mr. Deepak Bhosle, the role of the modern CIO has also been evolving and they need to steer and adapt new age technology. So, from your own experience, if you could tell us, how have you been using technology to pivot to growth?
If you look at Asian Paints, it's always been a very tech savvy company and always looked at technology for creating differentiators for its business. And the history of digitization goes way back in the early 70s, where we would have put in the first mainframes probably in the country. And since then, the faith in what technology can do to business has been phenomenal. If you look at how the role of the CIOs in general would have evolved over the years, I guess a large part of the CIOs were largely doing digitization and automation, and it's more the relationship with the other CXOs would have largely been that of a service partner. But things have changed, and as we come in a zone where we're just coming out of COVID, I think the CIO is being looked at as an equal partner in business, and the expectation from the CIO is there to actually create differentiators. Now, how do you create this? Digital is all about looking at the newer technologies which keep coming. How do you leverage the power of these technologies and embed them into your business fabric so that A, you can create really wow experiences for your customer, B, you can bring in enormous amount of productivity in your back-end operations, and C, which I like the most, is about creating digital products which can supplement your traditional offerings. So the CIO has got a big role today, and he has to work in great collaboration with other CXOs.
Mr. Gulrez, could you share your journey? How did you embrace digitization? What were the challenges that you faced during the pandemic?
Technology has been the focus of our company from last 15, 20 years. And from the ID perspective, we've always invested in the best of technology. So we're the first company to implement SAP in a poultry or a protein or a solvent organization in 2009-10. But then this pandemic, when it hit us, I would say we were one of the most worst hit industries. And it did not hit us from the time of lockdown. In fact, there were a lot of rumors which people must have also heard and shared and seen on the panel today. And it started in the month of February, and the entire industry was devastated with the false rumors of chicken having coronavirus and spreading itself. So we have seen how technology also disrupts and destroys industries, and how it makes also the industries better and stronger. Without technology, we couldn't have operated the way we could give service to people, especially in livestock, especially in perishable like our dairy business and our oil business and edible oil business. The people needed food, and we needed to supply our vendors, to our customers, to our dealers, to the last mile. In fact, to many of our many of our products, the farmers and their livestock was hungry, and we needed to feed them, rather be fish or rather be poultry chickens or rather be cows, cattle, and from there onwards we had decided to even change our SAP and revamp it to S4 system. So from past 1 year we were working with IBM along with SAP to transform our ECC to S4 HANA, and that we successfully did implement on 1st of October. So it was very exciting, and technology, without that we can't live, and we are investing more and more in terms of technology enablement at every mile, and we see a lot of positive change, and people in the organization, our employees, our customers, vendors, everybody is very excited because mobility has given transformational change to people's hands. That's what I believe. Until the mobile technology, when people were not so savvy, and even internally, our parents here, our MD and other people used to also mention that how will the villager use this mobile phone and the technology what you're going to provide. And now the answer is that they are already using so many apps. They're using Snapchat, they're using Facebook, they're using WhatsApp, day in and out.
And
So
internet
I would say
penetration is
India
everywhere.
is the leading country where mobility has played a major role in transformation of technology, and that's how people will use it now. I'm very excited for the coming days. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your insights there. But let me bring Miss Ritu in here. So Ritu, I'd like to come to you. Tell me, you're a leader in this space. So how are you helping organizations embark on their digital transformation journey? And what, according to you, are the key considerations for enterprises as they begin their transformation journey?
Got it. Very important question and very critical for the times that we are in. As we heard from all of them, the change in post-COVID era or pre, we were all adopting digital to a very large extent, but there is a change in the way we are adopting. I would highlight 3 or 4 critical areas here, right, for making it easier for enterprise to adopt technology and what SAP always focusing and developing on. The first and the foremost is simplification. How can you simplify for the customers to reach out to their customers in a much faster way? Simplification from consuming, simplification from adoption, simplification from understanding what's the right technology to consume. Um, while the customer is very clear on the end goal, which is what is it that we're supposed to do in digital transformation, the execution of the end goal becomes extremely imperative to have a very successful digital transformation. The clear, ambitious these organizations are leading, the CIOs are leading today. It's very important that the end goal is very well articulated and we assist them in completing that end goal. Uh, Last but not the least, the ease of integration. Today, you already have a lot of technology to your systems, to your organizations. Like rightly said, there is mobility driving a lot of things. How do you integrate all of this in together while the businesses are running, while the customers are increasing, but make it very simple way of an integrated approach for adopting any of the technology that's going to be adding value to your organizations, adding value to your customers. So these are a couple of important things which I feel that organizations are vulnerable, are asking questions about, and we are helping them as that everybody's evolving in this journey.
So, Mr. Eklan, would you like to share your inputs here? How did you ensure cross-functional holistic growth from the bottom line right up to the top of the pyramid?
No system today works in isolation. No business today works in isolation. There are partners from where you get items, for the partners through who you sell items. So any IT or any digital transformation uh, is not only collaboration within the organization, multifunctional collaboration within the organization, but it is also collaboration outside the organization as well. That's the first point. And as I said, we have truly adopted the principle of design thinking and user-centric approach. When you do that, you got to create squads and teams and agile teams. Now, these agile teams would have a product owner and would have the representation from the various functions who will bring in the knowledge of that specific function and what that function expects from that solution. So instead of going the way of going to function A, asking for their requirement, and then to function B, asking for their requirement, and then adding up A plus B plus C and giving that requirement to IT, that entire process has changed to bringing A, B, C, D together into a room, into one unit, join them at the hip for a common goal, and then start implementation of that IT solution.
Mr. Anand, would you like to share with us how did you ensure holistic growth across departments from the back office to the front office? How was your journey?
So when we implemented SAP, we actually had a cross-functional core team built. Now that cross-functional core team has never changed. or rather, we have not gone back to the siloed way of working. That has been a cultural shift that has only evolved, and even today, that is the only way we work. So we work as a the whole process of being a cross-functional is now become more like a within the organization. There are thought processes which are getting integrated, and that collaboration is what is leading to solution. That's how we've been working. So the systems which are there internally, whether they be SAP driven solution manager kind of thing, where you put the processes of getting all the changes documented, discussed, agreed upon, and then the design being implemented, or using DevOps, where there is a collaborative input from all the functional teams, those who are stakeholders, those who are on the periphery of that solution. All of those people have to be engaged, and that is how the solution is being implemented. And the other thing that I would also like to endorse what Clark said is about the beyond the organization. I mean, we always think that most of our processes actually happen outside the organization. We have our business partners, we have people who are customers, direct customers, who are called consumers. All of these have to work in a cross mesh that is very well seamlessly integrated. So the idea of any implementation that we have done is to ensure this happens, so that everybody knows there is a two-way communication that is happening at every point. I mean, you don't have work, the designer cannot be in a silo. The guy who is asking for something must know whether he has got it or not.
Mr. Gulrikh, would you like to add something to this? How did you ensure cross-functional growth in your organization?
When we are implementing this digital transformation, this cross-functional collaboration is something of utmost importance, because today this is the world of collaboration. Not rather, I would not put it as competition itself. Everybody has to collaborate and perform, and technology is the platform where everybody collaborates together. And when this was a chance for us to implement technology, when we could get in those barriers broken between our different functional teams and get them together on a single platform, listen to their issues, and then collaborate at single platform. That was technology. That has and will always remain. That particular team, the core team, what we construct, will always remain, and that understand each another's problem and collaborate with one another and give solution to one another through a single platform, that is technology. So people understand each other better. Yeah.
Mr. Anand, what is your insight here? How are you utilizing consumer data to service consumer demands better?
Let me differentiate this between two things. One is consumer, another is customer. So when we say customer, we talk about those endpoints where before the consumer picks up the goods, what is that endpoint? So with that data has been available to us for some time, and we have been able to use that data to kind of understand the customer requirements better, the nuances of his uh, purchase patterns, or how the goods are moving in the secondary market or tertiary market. So with that data which is there available to us, we have been formulating certain strategy shifts and implementing them as part of our process. So the technology has helped us to get that data, in a form that can be understood better and can be acted upon.
So, tell me, Mr. Deepak, I want to ask you, how have you been utilizing consumer data to service demand better?
The organization is on a path of being an insight-driven organization, where it believes that the insights thrown up by data needs to get leveraged across the organization to make decisions, better decisions, superlative decisions. Same goes with managing consumer interactions. Now, these need to be logged in a certain central repository, and that is what we call a customer data platform, where we are logging every interaction we're having with the consumers in this customer data platform. We're running algorithms on these and trying to generate patterns to see what types of consumers have what type of preferences, what type of biases for certain products and services, what are the channels they prefer in terms of interacting with us, and actually creating next best actions for each of these customers at various touch points. So these next best actions are thrown back at each of these customer touch points. It may be consumed on a self-services basis by the consumer, or it could be by the agent or the human being who's interacting with the customer, to really create a context for the customer which is very personalized, which is very seamless.
All right. Mr. Eklat, would you like to add your insight here?
I can't tell you how important the consumer data is for us to serve the consumer even better. And it's not only the consumer data, but you have to understand what is going on in the market and what is going on in the world. First, it started with contactless delivery, and then we also understood that the market is not now saying that please don't visit our home, please don't come to our apartments, or please don't come to our house. So we increased our takeaway, and we then introduced something called, it is not exactly drive-in, but drive and pay. So you can place an order and you can say that I've reached the store and will deliver it to your car. We have also started delivering to the trains and to the buses. So we are going where the consumers are, and we are being contactless. The other piece is, as the COVID waves went up and down, the volatility on the delivery channel versus the dining channel went up and down with the COVID wave. But based on the consumer data and consumer insights, we were able to predict how well delivery will go, how well dining will go, and make the necessary adjustments with our stores and with our delivery partners to be able to serve and not lose a single customer order.
So, Mr. Gulrez, I'd like to bring you in here. How has technology helped you in managing supply chain uncertainty or managing risks?
I would say without that, we couldn't have lived in the pandemic time and even today's time. It was at every step of supplies. I would say the primary supplies to our traders, we could supply to our wholesalers and then to our consumers. Entire planning for the primary logistics to secondary to even consumers. Without technology, we couldn't have survived. So the transporters were not that tech savvy earlier, but now looking and experiencing at those moments, they can also do that bidding in time, and then they can place their vehicles in time, and then they can maneuver their fleet the way we want at right point in time. With S4 HANA coming in place, a lot of clarity, a lot of collaboration. That's what our team also experiences. And most importantly, I would like to add that technology is freeing up a lot of unproductive time when people used to
By automating.
just spend their time making reports, pulling out reports, making reports. All these
Routine
dashboarding has
tasks have
saved a
become
lot of
easier.
man hours. Yes, and that is what we need. We need productive man hours in an organization.
Yes. So coming to you, Ms. Ritu, if you could share that obviously organizations are adopting disruptive technologies like AR, VR, intelligent RPA, algorithm-driven decision making, but there are a lot of challenges that they face when it comes to harnessing these technologies at scale. So, what are the important factors that organizations need to keep in mind while beginning their journey and embracing digitization from the back office to the front office? And how do you think organizations should prepare for the future?
There's a lot of collaboration that's coming into. There is a lot of challenges that you're trying to overcome as there are changes happening right from the way consumers are behaving to your customers' demand to what you're looking at your supply trade to getting the whole ecosystem of supply chain. So, it's a 360-degree view right now for any CIO, any decision maker to say that how am I reaching and how managing these multiple challenges. I think one common thread to take away, and I'm hearing all the speakers right now, is the partnership mindset. This technology transformation, adoption, getting the returns of the technology adoption is becoming extremely important. there is a partnership mindset. I think I heard pretty promising lines from Ekler, from Gulrez, from Anand about how they have changed the status quo inside internally to bring together and one goal, one team, and actually address not only the front office challenges but the back office challenges as well. Right? There is fundamental shift in the way both of these are getting integrated, right from your supply chain optimization cycles to getting a view to the demand to how your customers are interacting you at the front end. How does your employee interact with you at the front end? So we are not able to silo out that we will work only on supply chain or we will work only on channels or we will work only on adopting technology which is giving an ROI. But it is an overall encompassing view. And I think that is a very strategic imperative that most of the decision makers today are looking at. We've observed this across the industry. And we've also seen that wherever it's driven in that fashion, there is very high success ratios and a quicker adoption. City has been absolutely hand in glove with this thought process, helping organizations to actually utilize the technology that they are developing and implementing.
Mr. Deepak Bhosle. So, could you tell us from your own experience how have these technologies been deployed at scale across your organization?
So it goes in early 2000 we were experimenting with a lot of Salesforce automation technologies. Then we got in a mobile based computing era. We went onto the cloud. A lot of applications moved onto the cloud, and as we speak today, a lot of stuff is happening on AI, ML, RPA, digital twins. So we've been as a philosophy, as a culture, we have been always wanting to try this early and get it right, and then scale it across organizations and really start measuring the impact it has been able to create on customer experiences or on productivity or efficiency, or created a different value multiplier for that particular business. So one example which I can quote is we have been able to create a complete digital twin of our manufacturing facilities. Asian Paints has got some of the most advanced high technology plants which are driven by a lot of automation, which means there's a lot of IoT data there's a lot of MES, DCS data, and there's data from the enterprise application. So what we have done is we've got all of that together, created a virtual twin of the physical plant, and now we are able to run hypothesis on this virtual twin before we actually take on the physical plant, and we have been able to scale it across multiple factories, and we have been able to actually reduce our cycle times. We have been able to get in practices like getting it right first time.
Mr. Ekler, the modern CIO's role is also evolving. CIOs need to steer the business to success, and they need to be connected. They need to prepare for the unknown. So, how are you leveraging technology? How are you adopting disruptive technologies like AR, VR? Could you share some insights there?
Yes. First of all, we use disruptive technologies in two ways. One, technology for the sake of technology. Okay, this might be counterintuitive, but we have an innovation lab, and there we are only focused on technology. But we do take business use cases, but the primary focus is how do we make the technology consumable? What are the potential use cases? We run experiments, low cost, low effort experiments, either through partners or through POCs or through pilots or through people of our own. But the main idea is try and test out the technology, what it can do, what it can't do, what are its limitations, scalability, and what business problems potentially it could solve. The other piece is technology for business. We tell the business that these are the potential technologies that are available in the market now that were not there earlier. So if AR, VR, or IoT, especially IoT, AI and ML can solve some of the existing business problems and pain points, we make them aware of this, and we come up with a project where both the latest and the emerging technologies gets married to a business use case, and together IT and business drives the implementation of that.
Moving on, just tell me, Mr. Deepak Bhosle, what do you think are the main challenges that you faced in embracing digitization from the back office to the front office? And also, according to you, what are the top digital technologies that you think will reshape the entire sector, the CPG and retail sector?
So I think one big challenge which a lot of CIOs need to really worry about is understand the business challenge, understand the business problem, understand what is it that the business is gunning in terms of a certain possibility or a certain vision. On basis that, try to see how technology can enhance or accelerate them to reach that vision. Try to understand the KPIs, try to see how jointly the CIO and the CXOs can work together, form a joint team, have common KPIs, run a proper governance, onboard the non-technology teams on what technology can do, onboard the technology teams on possibly what business is gunning for, and this combination of coming together and working in unison, I think creates wonders to the impact it can cause, and it really takes you into a zone where probably you do breakthrough innovations. And I think that's one big challenge which a lot of CIOs face today in terms of really taking technology to create disruptive outcomes. The second one would be which every CIO now would be going through is in terms of retaining their talent. Because a lot of preferences of the technology talent would change because of the pandemic which we are going through, and you need to have a way to understand how you're going to bring back this talent onto your workplace, may it be from work from home mode or work from office close to you or work from office.
All right, thank you. So, Mr. Anand, which are the top digital technologies, according to you, that will reshape the CPG and retail landscape, and the ones that you are using at scale at your organization?
Some of these technologies are still, on a mature curve of maturity, still not so high that we are going to jump into it and adopt it immediately. Like Clark said, there are certain technologies which are still, being, we are trying to treat the waters carefully and trying to see business cases that will fit into such the technology can fit. So what we are seeing is that we see the ecosystem, including the partners like SAP and the likes, bringing in more flexibility on the use of these technology. See, we don't want to go and invest in a specific technology and then use it for a long time. Whenever we want certain technology to be used, we can go in and use them like a on-demand service. There might be, in our case, we started using IoT for certain small activities like trying to have the office, the lighting and the equipment being monitored and controlled. So we, with a lot of people, very few people also coming to offices, and some of the areas, places in the office being used, but not the entire office. You are having a situation where a lot of these lights and the equipments are on all the time. But by using this, we have been able to control that and bring down the cost of the usage. But I think that is something, it's a very small, thing. What we have, probably business is looking at is how this kind of technologies can scale better to the entire ecosystem, how it will collaborate within the ecosystem, and how we can adopt them as and when that is required.
Mr. Gulraj, would you like to tell us what are the top digital technologies that you think are going to reshape the entire landscape of CPG and retail?
So it is imperative that we need to dive into technologies and new technologies that are being evolved now. So we can't just say that the technologies need to be, first evaluated definitely, but it's not that it has to be proven first. You have to dive when you grow as an industry, you have to dive into a technology. It has to grow with you, rather than it is grown and then you are it. That is how the technology companies and also the other industries have grown along. Because what we have experienced also in our poultry, when we started in SAP, there was no solution to give from SAP in poultry. But however, we built it custom in SAP. And when we talk about FMCG and CPG, every solution is available in SAP still. But SAP also had an issue in terms of how we would do it for poultry, but we customize it. But however, the experience what we've had from the last implementation till now, SAP itself has evolved a lot in terms of the planning and the back-end engine what they have, the MRPs, etc. So they've also helped us execute our poultry business better, even though we had to build over it on a customized level. So it's the flexibility of SAP also to get things customized the way your industry would demand. However, collaboration, the method, the way the SAP collaborates also with different technologies is something commendable. And coming up with the IoT technologies, we are already using it rather in our manufacturing facility. So getting all that data into SAP from different level of machines and the throughputs and the outputs and the consumptions, etc., at different levels, at different points, and every minute and minute information which flows into the system. What the beauty of the single platform system is to make decision making. How you would what decision you derive out of that information. So until you have something which can flash to you what different decisions can be made with information, then as business owners and technology owners, we can decide upon that information. So I would think very exciting times to come, and this is what we require. We need to we are focusing on greener manufacturing. We are talking about sustainability and environment, and without the right information and savings on the fuels and the energies and the wastage of energies and restricting it to some extent, we will not be able to achieve it. So this information and collaborative effort of IoT and AI is very imperative and important for us to go forward.
All right, all right. So coming back to you, Ritu, just before we wrap up, I would like us to maybe hold a crystal ball and look into the future. So how do you think that the CPG and retail sector can prepare for the future? And what are the things that they need to keep in mind for a long-term and a short-term goal when it comes to tech adoption?
Yeah, I think all of us really want to look into the future much faster. But when it comes to CPG and when it comes to consumerism that we're driving around, right? Let me put an equation for all of us to understand. And we're talking about the future. So let's understand our current or a historical equation. We were looking at customer value always to be created, but we were looking at the equation could have been cost plus choice plus the convenience that we are providing to a customer. Today, that equation is completely changed. And if you look at the future equation of customer value, you're basically looking at everything enhanced. You're looking at cost or evolved cost. You're looking at enhanced customer experience. And two elements have been added to it. It's basically the control and the overall experience that you want to provide to your end customer. The CPG is one particular industry which is really in the heat of providing the best customer experience, right? And at this very point of time, it's basically refining trade to a very large extent, right? So the whole redefining of trade is happening in CPG at this point of time. Adoption of technology is a baseline right now. The point of contention was how do you go closer to the customer? You've seen the model of trade change to become direct to consumer right now. So manufacturing units coming more closer to where customers are sitting. All of this put together, the future is brilliant. There's a lot of technology adoption that customers and are partnering with companies like SAP. The idea is how do you keep changing at a very rapid pace because customers are evolving, and the center point always is to increase the lifetime value of a customer.
Customers are at the core of every decision because data-driven insights are going to ultimately enable us to cater to their growing and evolving demands. So just before we wrap up, Mr. Anand, what are your long-term, as a CIO, what are your long-term top 3 priorities and what are the short-term priorities as well?
So we will have to see how the market, the go-to market, the marketing, and the strategic business initiatives are enabled with a continuous improvement and continuous development as a strategy. It is not going to be something that we are going to have a fixed specification of what we are going to do. We're going to take it as the consumer demand or the consumer's expectations are changing. We will have to plug in those expectations immediately. So we will have to go to where the consumer wants us to go, and make sure that we are able to give him what he wants, rather than plan our future in a certain manner where we look at only technology as the bedwork, but we also need to keep improving on the customer side of the initiative. So basically, we will look at go-to-market and marketing and strategic business initiatives, supply chain changes that will help in enabling getting maximum business benefits. Uh, so basically, that in our collaboration within and outside the organization will become more and more tighter, and it will become more and more, game changing for both the consumer, the business, as well as the business partners.
All right, Mr. Ekta, would you like to share your top three priorities looking at the long-term vision?
So in short term, what we are working on is how we work on digital transformation. It's not what, but how we work on the digital transformation. So we will go 100% agile and DevOps, and that's truly agile and DevOps, not hybrid, not mini waterfall, truly agile and DevOps. We'll move from project thinking to product thinking. We have to attract and build and reskill the new age talent, and also lay the foundation for what I call a scalable, a flexible, and an agile architecture. Those are short-term goals, not long-term goals. We have to achieve that in the next 3 to 6 months. Long term, it is about leveraging the old technologies, the current technologies, and the emerging technologies like IoT, AI, ML, AR, and VR, specifically these three technologies for the purposes of innovating and creating new business models. Because as you can see, the fintech and all of the startup world, they are coming up newer and newer business models. And so there is an ability to invent new business models as is demonstrated by the startups.
Mr. Deepak Bhosle, what, according to you, will be the top three priorities in the short term and the long term for the CPG and retail sector?
We typically are banking a lot on AI ML to really take us through into the next wave of innovation. We've already done a lot of work on AI ML, RPA, digital twins, and a lot of advanced analytics. So I guess from an organization point of view, if you look at the business which we are in the business of creating beautiful homes for our customers. We are in the business of creating joy for our customers, which means that the customer has a lot of ideas in his mind. He has a lot of dreams in his mind. So as a company, can I use technology to understand the intent behind whatever he says to us? Can I understand his color preferences? Can I understand his decor preferences? And a lot of AI ML is going to go there in terms of understanding the intent to create a beautiful home. The second area is in terms of using advanced analytics, in terms of using advanced statistical tools, in terms of predicting the outcomes. And that is where I feel the employees can now start taking better decisions. You need to move that from being very intuition based to a very data driven based approach, and that has to happen across the organization, which means that you need to give employees the insights which they'll help them take far superior decisions, which will help them really achieve their KPIs, which in turn impact the customers or getting the productivity, or it might probably be a different value multiplier in that sense.
Ulrich, just before we wrap up, what are your short-term and long-term goals when it comes to technology adoption?
I would like to first focus on our people and our ecosystem adapting what we have implemented first. So most important thing is adapting it mentally, and for us to buy and implement technology is very simple, but most imperative is that it's adapted by our people in a day-to-day thinking and execution of our work and business.
Well, thank you all for joining us for this very insightful discussion. To sum up, in current times, the CIOs need to find a way to deliver timely, flexible IT service solutions by leveraging new age technologies, and the way forward is to adapt and lead by embracing agility and digitization and be ready for what's next while ensuring greater efficiency and maximum productivity. Thank you all for joining us, and hope you enjoyed watching this special show. Two power-packed discussions and various thought-provoking insights focusing on the power of new age technologies and leveraging data-driven insights to innovate, invent, and adapt. CFOs and CIOs, business leaders need to make the right choices to formulate the best strategies to create robust supply chains and ensure business continuity in the post-pandemic world. So thank you all for watching this very special show and hope you enjoyed it.